Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Career Expert Roundtable. I am Bill, the company's expert. And as always, I have Abby from Life Work Balance. Hello, Abby. How you doing today?
Hi, Bill. Thanks for putting this together again. Excited to chat about the generative AI options.
That's right. Absolutely. The topic today is how generative AI is helping job seekers crush resumes and interviews. This is an extremely relevant topic, and it's an extremely interesting topic to me, at least. Some of the tools that are available out there to help job seekers learn how to do their resumes, how to do job applications, and then how to coach them through interviews. And as we're going to be getting into today, help them actually do the interviews too, is amazing. So we are going to get into this. Abby is going to share some of her insights into this topic as a professional recruiter and all around HR expert. So where do we start off? Are we going to start off with resume writing? Is that kind of the logical place to start this at the beginning of the process?
Yeah, I do. I think that first, let's talk a little bit about maybe the different types of AI tools that are
Sure, yeah.
available to people. And we're going to be focusing mostly on the generative AI for our chat today. But there are other tools out there that can help you. And there are probably tools that are in development that we're not even aware of right now that are going to completely revolutionize the job search, interview, hiring, and really world of work. And so AI could be used for a lot of different things. I've had clients that I work with. Most of my clients are virtual over Zoom. And so they'll use AI platforms as like note takers during our meetings to capture our session content and information. Those types of like AI note takers also exist in like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and other formats like that, where it can synthesize the information, action items, things like that. So there's lots of really great AI tools out there. But specifically for job seekers, I think the best place to start is probably with updating your documents for a job that you want to apply to. And so this includes resumes, it includes your cover letters. I could go on for cover letters like for hours because I think cover letters are great. Most people cringe when it comes to writing a cover letter because they don't want to put in that extra effort. AI is a great way to really streamline the process and give you a pretty good first draft to start working from for your cover letters. And then AI programs can also help you update things like your LinkedIn profile and write emails to people. So when it comes to resumes, I think there's a couple of ways that people can go about doing this. I recommend, just from a general standpoint, that people have what's called a master resume, which is like their entire professional and educational history. This is a document that could be 4 to 10 to 20 pages long, depending on what types of content people include on their
Wow.
resume. But it's not something that they would submit to an employer. If I'm an employer looking to hire someone for a job, I'm not going to spend time looking through anything more than really 2 pages. And that's like for most jobs. I would say for academic jobs, people applying to work at colleges and universities, you're usually required to upload what's called a CV, which is very similar to a master resume and includes all of the education you've kind of acquired, courses you've taken, all of your professional experiences to help kind of contribute to the academic world that you're in.
All your publications and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's like the one caveat. So if you're in academia or education, you'll usually submit what's called a CV, curriculum vitae, which is slightly more similar to a master resume, not as much of a tailored resume. But I recommend people start off with this master resume. They will kind of add to it continuously over the course of their professional lives. And it's going to just be a complete record, the full depth and breadth of their experience professionally and their education. So I recommend people start this kind of out of high school and then just keep track of everything after that. And then they have to create a tailored resume from that mastered resume to submit to jobs. And so the tailored resume process is a little bit more time consuming because you have to decide what you're going to include on your resume versus what you need to exclude on your resume. This can be tough for some people because we're really proud of the things that we've done. We want to talk about some of our biggest accomplishments, things like that. But when it comes to applying to jobs, our resume isn't really for us. It's for the hiring manager. It's for the recruiter. It's really to show them how we are going to be the best fit for the specific position we're applying to. So I might be an expert at underwater basket weaving, but I'm applying to an HR role. My underwater basket weaving expertise is not necessarily relevant to the HR role that I'm applying to. So I wouldn't need to include anything about my education in underwater basket weaving, the internships I've done, the courses I've taken, or anything like that. The certifications I've gotten. Don't need to include that in a
Which
job.
are extensive, yes.
Yes. Don't need to include that type of information. Not relevant. So I would want to create a tailored resume for any job that I'm applying to. I could use ChatGPT or other generative AI tools to do just that. I might copy and paste the job posting that I found that I want to apply to into the prompt box in ChatGPT and ask it to convert my master resume, which I could then also upload into the prompt box, to a tailored resume specifically for the job that I'm applying to. And it would really quickly take all the stuff that's not relevant from my master resume out and keep the things that is relevant. And then I can go even deeper from there. I can ask it to generate additional bullet points for me. I might ask it to create 10 quantifiable metrics that I could use throughout my resume. I might ask it to write my professional summary that's tailored specifically to the role. I might ask it to list 10 technical or soft skills that are most relevant to the role. So there's ways that we can use generative AI programs like ChatGPT to really streamline the process of updating and tailoring our resumes for the jobs that we're applying to. Now, most people hear about this tailored resume concept and kind of cringe, similar with cover letters, because it's like, oh, I have to put in all this extra time and effort to apply to every single job. And while that is sort of true, at the same time, most people will likely find that they'll have themed resumes. I might have an HR resume. I might have a training resume. I might have a communications resume. And I'll use a very similar template for those resumes for each type of job that I apply to. So ChatGPT can help us create that and then streamline the process.
Makes a lot of sense. You have a master list of skills you could say, and then you're going to be drawing out specific ones, possibly rewriting them to make a custom resume for every job, depending on what they're looking for. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And it's also really helpful because let's say that I'm switching industries. Let's say that I was an educator, a teacher, maybe an elementary school teacher, and that I'm wanting to transition into a completely different industry like human resources, or maybe I went to school for engineering and I'm ready to move into more of the professional technical world rather than teaching. It seems like those could be very different, but there are likely transferable skills between the two that will help me be successful in whatever industry I find myself in. So we could also ask ChatGPT to help us define those transferable skills and really link and connect the dots between my previous experience and this role in an industry that I've never officially worked in before. And it can really help us kind of tell our story and connect the dots for the people who are looking at our resumes and our documents.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a window of opportunity right now because there's a lot of people using AI tools right now to work on their documents, like you were saying, cover letter, resume, applications, emails, that kind of stuff. But yet there's a lot of people that aren't. And I did a poll on my YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago or something, because I was curious, how many people are actually using ChatGPT? How many people are actually using other AI tools? How many people are not using any AI tools in their job search? And it came up roughly 50-50. I think I was more 60-40 in favor of people not using them. So at least that's the results I got. So it's there's still a lot of people that are not taking advantage of some of this stuff. And I imagine probably the easiest sell to get someone to use AI to work on cover letters and resumes is probably the speed factor. You could do it a lot quicker than you could do it.
Absolutely.
And that'll maybe get people's their foot in the door. But then when you realize it can do some of the things that you were just talking about by, say, dynamically rewriting your accomplishment, not just sort of selectively omitting or deleting things off a master resume, but taking what you have on a master resume and rephrasing it, drawing out skills that might not be explicitly mentioned, but they should be mentioned if you're doing a career transition like you just brought up. or something like that, just dynamically bringing out stuff as needed based on what this job you're applying for is looking for. I think that's kind of like, once you start seeing how it can do that for you, I think
Yeah.
it'll be a lot easier sell for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, and I think like creating metrics is also something that I didn't really consider initially when I started using ChatGPT. But when you think about it, as a hiring manager or a recruiter, metrics, caveat that they're true, metrics really display and like can quantify the value that a candidate is bringing to the table when it comes to the interview and hiring process. And so I might be, every day of my job doing the same thing and not really thinking about how to quantify my experience to make it matter to someone else who might be hiring me in the future, or to show the value that I can provide. And so even asking ChatGPT to analyze your current job description and generate 50 potential metrics, it will put in like fake numbers and things like that. But then I can get an idea of like, okay, how can I start to really quantify the value that I'm bringing to my current job and my current organization, and the value that I can just provide in general? And then really show that off and display that to a new employer or a hiring manager to really show that I'm going to be the best fit for this position, and look at this value that I can provide. I'm already doing it here. I'm going to do it for you in the future. And I think there's been a couple of resources floating around the internet for a couple of years about, like, Google, for example, some of the really like competitive tech jobs. They are going to look for resumes that have quantifiable metrics, because that's what matters to them. And so if you don't have that as a part of your resume, you're not really going to even be considered. They want to see what are the results that you can achieve. Using ChatGPT is a great way to just give you an idea of where to start with that.
Yeah, that's something haven't really talked about on my channel that would probably be a good idea to mention to people, like give examples of metrics. Like I never thought about this before, but like you just brought up, like taking a resume that might not have metrics in it, but then using AI tools to create metrics. So by saying, for like, let's pretend that, I don't know, you worked in customer service and you process customer service work orders or requests or something like that. And then if you had some idea about the amount of time that each of these will save for the end user. So on an average customer request, say you save the customer 2 hours worth of work, or if you know the dollar amount, like of, savings or help that you're providing, if you know the average amount, you could say, okay, I know the average amount is like $100 per client. It saves them $100 of client because they're getting their issue resolved. Or you might not know that, but you know that it saves them 3 hours worth of work on average, because you tell them what the answer is, and that saves them having to keep researching what the problem is and fix it themselves. So if you could turn, like, okay, 1 hour of their time, what's that worth? Is that worth $20? Is that worth $40? Some grounded basic sort of conversion thing. And then you could say, well, I process 150 customer requests in a week, and this thing that I did at work, that allowed me to produce 20 more per week, which amounts to this many dollars per week, which amounts to this many dollars per year savings because of my performance. So you can say, I saved the company this much amount of money, per year based on my performance in doing this project, or something like that. So you can create all of those and then add them to your resume where it's needed, and give the potential employer what they're looking for in terms of like quantifiable impact that you've had, which could better illustrate your value than just saying, I'm a hard worker, or, I work hard, or, something like this, right?
Yes. Well, and as you were talking, I just brought up ChatGPT and like put in a very vague prompt. And this is the great thing about generative AI, is that you can then ask it to be more specific. You can give it more details to then create more relevant results, things like that. So I'm going to put in the chat my prompt that I set to ChatGPT. And this was, I work in customer service and am updating my resume. What are 10 different metrics I could use on my resume to show my value? Very vague. I'm not even saying what the job is that I'm applying to. I said I work in customer service, which is a huge industry. Like, I would say actually probably every role is customer service in some way, shape, or form. Very vague. So then here is the response that it sent me. And I hope that this is not going to be broken up in too many different chats within our chat itself. But oops, it recopied the same thing. Let me see if it'll paste this one.
Can you share your screen? That might also be
Yeah.
an option if this doesn't work.
Yes. Let's see. It's going to break this up into a couple of different chats. So let me just send this first one. I'll send the second one so people can go back and refer it, and then I'll share my screen as well. So cross-selling. Here we go.
Yeah, and traditionally the metrics that you'd provide, at least for management type stuff, they would either be in currency, like dollars, this is the impact, this much savings or this much money made, whatever, or percentage. So if you made something more efficient or you increased the capabilities of something, that's how, you had you increased efficiency by 17%, or you improved lead times by 17%, something like that. How can I take this off the screen? Here we go. Hide. Okay, now let's see if we can add this.
Perfect.
Something like this.
Yep. So you can see my prompt. I work in
Yep.
customer service and I'm updating my resume. What are 10 different metrics I could use on my resume to show my value?
Can you zoom in a little bit on your screen just to maximize how big the text is there?
Let's see.
Just Control plus on your keyboard if that works.
Not. I also have a Mac, so it's not wanting to.
Oh, okay. Well, then nothing works.
Yeah, then it's completely different. I wonder if I could maybe make it smaller and see if that.
There we go.
There we go. So we can see like there's the customer satisfaction score, first call resolution, net promoter score, call and response time, average handle time, retention rate, upselling / cross-selling successes, ticket resolution rate, customer complaint reductions, training and team contributions. So
if you work purely in that role, you could use some of these metrics. These are just examples. Like you don't have to necessarily put all of them, but a couple would be probably pretty good.
Yeah. And so the more specific you are when you talk to the generative AI program, the more specific its outputs will be for you. So I highly recommend just testing with ChatGPT to see what it generates for you when it comes to these sorts of things. Really, the possibilities are endless. I think that you when you are communicating with these types of programs, you want to treat it like another person. And that's actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but I think that's one of the other great things about generative AI is that if you are on a budget and you don't have the funds to work with a career coach or a resume writer or someone who can help you with that, generative AI is a great free starting place to, kind of get your foot in the door when it comes to updating these documents and getting someone else's opinion.
Definitely. I mean, this would be a whole lecture series or live stream just on its own, just talking about accomplishments, when to use them, what kind, like what form they should take. For example, a lot of the stuff you just listed, it's almost like this is my performance.
Yes.
It's not tied to an accomplishment. It's my performance. It's like saying I type 50 words a minute. It's like, you can have those. Traditionally, I've seen more quantifiable stuff on resumes connected with accomplishments. So you could say, I was given this project, it had this impact, or I was promoted into this role and I had this impact, and then you say, I increased this by whatever percentage and I had this dollar impact. So, you want to put a couple in just to sort of back up stuff, but they could also serve as conversation pieces, like in an interview. And I think that's what we should move to next, because I'm very excited to talk about this. So talking about generative AI, not only for resumes and cover letters and documents, but for helping you prepare for an interview. So do you want to take us away on that, Abby?
Absolutely. And I actually think this is where the rubber meets the road with job search and interview preparation. Using AI for your interview prep is such a great technique because it can generate questions for you. It can help you generate potential responses or outlines for your responses. It can help you really pick out the most important competencies for a potential role. So you can focus on developing stories that are really focused on those competencies. So as a career coach, when I'm working with my clients, I'll actually do that using ChatGPT. I ask my clients to send me copies of their resumes, the job postings that they applied to, any other information about their interviews that they might be aware of, how many people are going to be in the interview, what is the format, What are the like names and titles of the people in the interview? And you can use all that information to then put it into ChatGPT and like kind of generate some ideas of what to prepare for. So I'll usually ask ChatGPT to analyze a job posting and give me the top 10 competencies for the specific position. Those top 10 competencies can then be used to create stories to then answer any behavior-based or situation-based interview question. So if one of the competencies is leadership, and it gives me a couple of ideas or bullet points based off of the job posting, then I can say, okay, where do I have experience in a leadership role or leading a team or a project where I've been able to do these things? Maybe one of the other competencies is conflict resolution. So then I can think about conflict resolution. So when it comes to preparing for an interview, you always want to think of what types of stories you will tell that are going to be relevant to the job that you're interviewing for and that you're applying for. ChatGPT can help you do that by giving you those competencies to then focus on. The other thing that I will do is I will ask ChatGPT to generate 10 behavior-based interview questions, 10 situation-based interview questions, and 10 technical interview questions that are all based off of the job posting. So that gives me 30 questions that I can then share with my clients to help them prepare for their interview. They can read through those. They can say, I actually answered this one in my last interview, so I don't need to focus on it. Or I'm finding a theme with these types of questions, so I'm going to focus on developing a story or, example from my experience and background that matches that. If you are preparing for an interview, you want as many resources as possible. And this is a really free and quick way to generate those resources to help you be successful with preparing.
That makes sense. And that's all the preparation. This is what you do to prepare. So you're not actually in an interview. The thing that I want to get to is you have a video. We were talking about this a moment before we went live. You have a video where you're reacting to someone doing an interview live, and this is a remote interview. So they're doing it on the screen with like almost like a Zoom call, right? The teleconferencing type thing. But in the corner of the screen, they have an AI tool that's probably based off just ChatGPT prompts that is listening in to the interviewer asking questions, and the AI is giving you its sort of guide of how to answer that question in real time, so that the candidate who's sitting at the computer and is doing the interview live, they can see this in the corner of their eye, and they can like glance at what AI is prompting them to say, and that can help them give an answer in real time during an actual interview. I thought that was incredible. That's like an awesome sort of situation.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? I'm interested to hear
Yeah.
about that.
So I linked to the video in the chat if anyone's interested in watching it.
Perfect. Let's put that up.
It's getting a lot of like polarizing responses. So as a recruiter and hiring manager and interviewer myself, I feel like using AI to give you answers during an interview is not a good idea. Primarily because as the recruiter, hiring manager, or interviewer, if I realize that your answers aren't yours, that you don't necessarily have the specific experience, that's going to make me question the candidate's integrity and then probably not want to move forward with them in the interview process. At the same time, the job market is so cutthroat. There are people who are just looking for any opportunity to really set themselves apart from the rest of the people so that they can get a fair chance at being considered for a role. And so why not use AI tools to help you get there? Now, again, I can see both sides. I lean more towards the side of not using AI to give you answers live in an interview, primarily because if you are not used to being conversational, you're not used to reading off of a like teleprompter or something like that, it can come off as really robotic. It can be pretty clear that it's not your own responses, especially if the interviewer is asking you follow-up questions for more detail. And so it can get you into a pickle pretty fast if you don't know what you're doing. At the same time, If you're the kind of person who like you can do the work really well and you just tend to have these like anxiety blackout moments where you can't remember your first name in high stress situations, then maybe these sorts of tools would be really beneficial for you. And it's all based on how you use it. So I don't recommend reading word for word what is generated for you through programs like this. However, if it gives you some speaking points based off of your resume or your experience and it can connect the dots for the job posting, why not? If we're going to be using these tools probably in our roles moving forward, it only makes sense that we become really fluent with the technology as early as the interview stage. So I'm really torn. I think that using these tools as interviewees, as candidates, is a great way to show how technologically savvy we are, how we're willing to learn, the resources we're willing to use. All these things can really make you a really great employee. And at the same time, if I'm not personally coming up with the information and I'm plagiarizing or I'm saying the wrong things because I'm not really fact checking what's coming through, it can really backfire.
That's interesting. I appreciate how you said like I'm on the fence. On one hand, it kind of seems like a little slimy. You're getting prompted. It's almost like somebody whispering like the Cyrano de Bergerac thing. Somebody like whispering the answers in your ear for you to say. When the other person is unaware of this other person prompting you. On the other hand, it's a tool, and I think that if you take an extreme situation, an extreme case, an extreme example where a recruiter asks a candidate something that just stumps them, like just like, okay, tell me about a time that you use creativity to combined with your ability to make pizza to eliminate a conflict in a group that was a cross-functional team, and the candidate's going like it just goes blank, and then that's the moment when you forget your first name, right? You need to have someone send in like a note or something, but like, what would be the harm in having an AI tool running in the background, prompting you stuff at the bottom of your screen that you usually ignore, but instead of giving the response, duh, I don't know, you look down in that moment and it says, tell them about the time you did this, and you go like, okay, and then you just give that answer. I mean, it saves you in that moment, right? I think most people would probably agree that like, okay, that would justify doing it. Almost like having notes in an interview. Is that unethical? Like, you're being prompted. You didn't memorize everything. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to draw their own line, like in the sand, like where that border is. And, that's crossing the line or this isn't crossing the line. It's totally a judgment call. I'm going to go out on a limb and I would say like, I don't find any ethical issue in using it. It's still you're giving the answers. The answers come from either preparation or spontaneity or notes or prompting. Now the difference is that these notes are dynamic. You know what I'm saying? And I would also say that it's a good thing because this game is an eternal sort of game of cat and mouse. And I think that maybe this would be the catalyst to push HR collectively, out of the group recruitment and selection, out of this complacency of asking the same cliched questions at every interview, and maybe rethink like how to assess someone properly rather than just relying on the same old tired questions that everyone is anticipating.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also goes back to the live stream you and I had last week where we were talking about the different types of formats for interviews.
Yeah.
I think like your traditional question and answer format might be a little outdated. It would be way more effective to bring someone in and evaluate how they're actually going to do the job and how they interact with the team or how they interact with a customer. And so I do think that there's a great benefit to these sorts of tools, really ruffling the feathers of interviewers and recruiters and hiring managers and HR as a whole, because it's going to force this industry to change so that, okay, maybe asking these same silly questions interview after interview is not going to get us the same results that we used to get before. So now it's time for us to change our methods and be more
Absolutely.
intentional about it. Be more intentional about the job posting. Be more intentional about the like interview process and the overall recruitment process. Be more intentional about the hiring process, because it's going to become, it's like it's a marketplace, right? People are going to want to work for us. We're going to want people to work, with us. There's like this give and take from both sides, and it might have skew one way or the other, kind of depending on where we are in the world of work. But it balances out over time, and we're getting to that place where AI is starting to balance things out.
Yeah, like okay, I saw, like we were talking about before, I saw AI come into education, and all of a sudden students using ChatGPT to do their homework for them and all this kind of stuff. And I saw the reaction to that, which was let's let's ban all AI, our students from using AI, and then let's just pretend it doesn't exist,
Yeah.
and just burying our head in the sand like this. And that lasted for a short while, and then it turned into okay, we accept the fact this thing is here, so therefore our traditional ways of evaluating a student's knowledge of something, having them write a paper on it, might not be adequate now. So the response that I saw, and I'm not an expert on this, but this is just what I observed, was like, okay, instead of going away and writing a paper on something to test your knowledge of it, now you submit your paper, but then you have to get up in front of the class and answer questions about it.
Yeah.
So we're changing our tactics to adapt to new technology. And I would argue that, like, okay, that's actually a good change, because now students honestly have to know what's in their paper. They have to retain it.
Yeah.
They can't just copy something out of a book and then, whatever. They haven't really learned anything. They have to retain it and then explain it to their teacher. And I would argue that that's up the game of education, and it's a positive change. Maybe the same type of change should happen in this process. It seems a bit old and stale in some regards, and we could use a little bit of a shakeup and maybe a refocus on, like, how do you actually evaluate someone? What are the specific things you're wanting to evaluate somebody on, and how do we do that? Maybe we need to ask
Absolutely.
those questions now.
Well, and the competitive process of hiring is becoming like legal and compliance issues for organizations. And so it's, at least in Colorado, which is where I'm located in the United States, the competitive process is required for pretty much every job that gets posted. So that means that I can't just say, okay, well, I have this job that I want to fill, and my best friend is the perfect person for that. So I'm not going to recruit for it. I'm just going to put them in it. If we have to go through a more competitive process, I can kind of get around that by saying, okay, well, I'm going to have my best friend apply. I'm going to interview them, and then I'm going to move them into the spot as well. But if we have to change the way that we're interviewing to make sure that we're finding the best person who's the best fit for the role, then those things like nepotism and cronyism and hiring the people that we know but don't really know how they're going to do the job, that's going to change it. And it's also going to require that job interviewer or interviewees, candidates, truly know their stuff. And there's not going to be these, hopefully, it'll evaluate or evolve in this direction. Hopefully it's not going to be like, oh, well, there was discrimination, they just didn't like me. It's now knowing that the process is really fair and truly evaluating who's going to be the best fit for the role.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we could do there. We were also going to talk about learning new skills, right? That was also a part of this, how AI can help you learn new skills. Do you want to take us through that, please, Abby?
I do. And before we do that, I have just one more screen share that I want to do, because I
Sure.
asked ChatGPT, as we were kind of discussing, giving us, real-time answers to interview questions. I was in an interview. I was being interviewed, and let me make sure I can find it. And this was an in-person interview. So this is a situation where using generative AI to answer the interview question wouldn't necessarily work, because I was in person with these people. But I was asked, how would you describe the color red to someone who can't see? Like, how do you answer that? I think in most cases, why they would ask this kind of like random question is more to just see how you respond, not necessarily looking for a right answer versus a wrong answer. But ChatGPT generated 2 potential responses for me that I could use to answer this type of question. So this might be a great way to use ChatGPT in the moment if you're asked one of those like left field questions that completely stumps you, throws you off completely, makes you black out, not even sure how to think, process the information, etc.
Yeah, I imagine the stuff in real time. It's like it's listening in, it enters the question in, and then as it's giving a response, which might take like a few seconds to spit out, a sort of response, that's when you're talking. So it spits out the response, and then it listens for the next question, and then so by the time the question is asked, within about 5 seconds, it's already sort of giving you an answer, and
Yeah.
that's where the usefulness is. Because if it's not right there when you need it, it might not be useful. But yeah, I mean that's a great example right there of what it can do.
Yeah. So now to kind of loop back to what you had originally brought up just a moment ago was like skill building with
Yep.
AI. So AI tools can really help us as job seekers learn new skills. We can strengthen existing skills. And so this, AI could maybe act as a tutor for you for some of those technical skills. I'm not a technical person, like I don't do coding or anything like that, but I know that ChatGPT can help you learn how to write code. It might be able to help you analyze data sets and things like that. You can also use ChatGPT, and I've used it in this way before, to help you draft communication, email templates, things like that. I highly recommend that after an interview, people send a follow up thank you. So you could have ChatGPT generate that follow up thank you as a draft that you can then go in and edit or modify, add something that you heard that you really enjoyed from your interview, make that personal connection, etc. If you're feeling really heated about something and you want to type in all caps and like pound on your keyboard, taking a break, pasting it into ChatGPT and asking it to make it a little bit more friendly and professional, it will change the tone. It will rephrase things. It will really help you generate more professional responses in a quick and effective way. And then the other thing that you can do is you can use AI to help you kind of explore resources. So this could be online learning resources, it could be job boards, things like that. So I might say, I'm a new job seeker, or, maybe I'm an older job seeker. I haven't had to apply online before. What are some of the best resources to start applying online for new jobs? And it might generate a list of 10 different websites that I could use to apply to jobs. It might give me ideas on how I could use platforms like LinkedIn to start searching for jobs. So there are a lot of different ways that generative AI can help us learn new skills or strengthen those existing ones.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of uses for this stuff. I mean, just anything that can answer questions. I mean, there's like so many uses for that. You could apply it to almost everything you do.
Yeah, well, and
So,
unrelated to
yeah,
job searches, like I've
yeah,
used ChatGPT to help me generate a grocery list based off of meal plans that I want to make. So I have toddlers, I have a 4-year-old, and I have an 18-month-old, and they're also sometimes picky. So I might say, can you generate a 2-week meal plan for me that meets these needs? Picky eaters, young people, takes 30 minutes or less to make, makes leftovers. My husband works um, weird hours. So the food that I make, he's usually not around to eat it. So I want to make sure there's leftovers for him. So there's lots of different ways that you can use ChatGPT, and then based off of that meal plan.
yeah. When you add all those constraints together, I can see that like being a bit overwhelming. Like, any one of those, like say, okay, toddlers, okay, do you need Chat GPT? You could probably figure that out on your own. Something that can be a meal that doesn't have to be eaten in real time. It can be put on the counter for like 6 hours or whatever. Probably don't need Chat GPT. But when you have all this stuff together, it's like, okay, it's more than just saving you time. It's actually doing a lot of cognitive kind of work here that if it's accurate, it's a real help.
Yes.
And
Maybe
that's
there's dietary restrictions you have to take into consideration.
yeah. Or like somebody's coming to dinner and they're allergic to X, so you can't have that. So it has
Or
to,
I want to increase
you
my
know,
protein intake, or
yeah, there you go.
within a certain number of calories
I
per
want to
meal.
revive some, obscure 80s diets, and like have them live again, in my house.
Yep.
Like this is the kind of thing that we're talking about here, where you take like a job description with their wants, wills, and needs, and then you have your resume with the particular things you have. Plus, you might have like, okay, we're now trying to prepare for behavioral interview questions where they're going to be asking stories, but stories can be a kind of slippery thing. Like it could be just something that you do as a routine thing every day, or it could be a real exception that sticks in your mind from years ago. Like, you're combining a lot of different inputs to get an output, and that can be a bit challenging. And that's where things like ChatGPT can also shine at combining all these things together. And that's what gives the people who use it an edge on being able to do this stuff. Not only is it quicker, but it can actually do this kind of thinking work that you may not have had time to do if you're applying for many jobs. And this is just one of the bunch you got to apply for or prepare for. You know what I mean? So it really gives you an edge to level up your game.
Yep. One, I just posted in the chat a prompt that you could use to analyze your job posting as well as your resume to identify skill gaps that you might have that could really limit your success in the interview as well as in the role. And so if I do this kind of proactively ahead of time, I might then say, okay, I need to take this specific class to be a little bit more aware of the language that could be used in this situation. I might need this certification, or I should read this book. So it's just a great way to help you identify what areas you may need to strengthen and what areas might already be strengths for you that you can really focus on during the interview process.
Yeah, and that's got three inputs. So it's got your resume, it's got the job you're going for, and then it's got like a master list of skills that you would probably need for that role in general, which is the kind of the third thing, right? And you're saying, like, which of the things on the master list do I not have based on my resume, but I probably will need because they're specifically asking for it in this role. So it's like, it's that kind of cognitive work. You could do it, but it would be a very laborious manual process. And let's face it, you're not going to be doing this kind of stuff all day long for like all the different jobs you're applying for. So because this is a time saver, this is my point. It allows you to actually do this work where you wouldn't have done it before. So not only is it quicker, you actually get a better quality of preparation that you're doing. Yeah. So it's like a double advantage on using some of these tools. And so if you're not using, if you're not using some of these tools now, I think we both highly recommend that you start, because there's a lot of advantages to doing so. It's really not very intimidating. Just get yourself a free ChatGPT account and just start using it like you would Google. Ask it questions, ask it anything you can think of, and you'll gradually learn what you can do with it and how powerful it is.
And I have the ChatGPT app installed on my phone. So if I'm out and about, I can, if I have a question, or if I, get a text message that I want a little bit of help crafting a response to, like, you can just use it all the time. I feel like I should be sponsored by ChatGPT as much as I tell people to use it. I'm not, but I sure wish I was, because I bring it up with people all the time.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool that's useful, but it's not the be all end all. Some people out there think it's like the be all end all. You don't have to think ever again. You don't have to do anything ever again. We're not at the point where you can open your phone and go to ChatGPT and say, get me a job, and it will go out and apply for everything. It'll link to your resume, link to all the jobs. It'll do all the applying, all the emailing, everything for you. We're not quite at that point yet. And if we ever get there, the system will react to make sure that doesn't work. So
I do think there are programs out there that are starting to do that. And it might not be like actually applying to the job, interviewing for the job, and getting you the job. But I do know that there are AI tools. I haven't used them before because I'm not in the process of job seeking. But I do know there are tools that will, at least email you when you've got a job that has been posted that fits your skills, or might generate your application that you then review to then click submit. And I think that actually brings us to kind of the final point that we wanted to talk about in our live stream today, which was like some of those considerations and limitations that might exist with generative AI programs like this. Really, there's a risk to over relying on the AI generated outputs that you get. It's likely average. So it's, that's kind of what AI is, especially generative AI. It's like taking all of the information it can find and it's creating this like average output. So it's average. If you want to be average and then you continue to rely on ChatGPT or whatever output you get, you'll be average. So it's up to us to really set ourselves apart from Everyone else, we can use ChatGPT, generative AI tools to give us the like basic foundation. But if we just use exactly what it puts out, it's going to be just average over time.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, as always with these things, there's a reaction to it, and we're starting to see the reaction to it. Now, for the early adopters out there, there will be an advantage because you're using this. Most people aren't, but you are. And the system you're trying to hack, shall we say, has not yet really got their act together in implementing countermeasures to neutralize your unfair advantage. So there's a window of opportunity for those people, the early adopters, to really come in and use some of these tools and really get a lead. In time, there will be the way these things usually go is there's an equilibrium that's reached where there's a response to this. People learn they learn the attack tools, so they develop countermeasures to neutralize it. And then more people adopt it, so it's now become standard. And as a result, it doesn't really give anyone that much of an advantage. That's kind of the way these things usually go. I assume this will follow that pattern.
Yeah.
Now AI will continue to evolve too. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, and like we've discussed, it's going to change the game for everyone. So right now,
Yeah.
as a job seeker using AI, I might be ahead of everyone else. I might be able to use it to really streamline the process. I might be able to help it or use it to help me answer interview questions in real time. But the system will eventually adjust to meet that and to kind of prevent people from trying to game the system and get around from doing the work. So eventually it will catch up to us.
God help them. They might have to interview people in person again. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Or use, I've taken a couple of assessments for my credentials where you have to be in a room that's proctored by someone where you have to show your room that you don't have tools to cheat from, and they're monitoring your screen.
They're standing over you with that whip in their hand. Yeah.
Yep.
That kind of thing. Yep.
Yep. So there are certainly things that are going to be limits of it. I think that, really the biggest concern for me that I share with people when they're using AI tools is that you want to make sure that you're using it as a first draft. It's not your final draft. It is a tool to help you really gather your thoughts and streamline the process and do the legwork for you initially, but it's still going to require that you use your humanness to personalize it and tailor it to the job that you're applying to.
I agree. Maybe in 5 years it might get to that point, but it's not there now. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. This is like a really interesting development. I think it's the first truly disruptive development that's happened to this stuff in, I don't know, at least 30 years. I mean, job interviewing and resumes and stuff have been pretty much the same for a very long time. And
I would say probably since the online application, right?
Yeah.
Before it was you had to stop by in person or pick up the phone and call someone and tell them you're interested in a position and set up the interviews that way. So this seems like the first major change to the recruitment and talent acquisition industry since probably the internet with online applications.
I agree. And I mean, just the fact that, the internet came, it's like people just took what they were already doing and put it online. They didn't change what they were doing. They just put it online. So now you have the same old resume, but instead of a piece of paper, it's a PDF. And instead of snail mailing it to you, I email it to you, but it's the same document used for the same thing in the same way. You know what I mean? It's nothing fundamental has changed really. And I think interviewing, I don't know for a fact, but I get the vibe that interviewing has been, more or less the same since about the 1960s, at least, if not earlier. Yeah. Some of these questions do date from why did you leave your last job? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I know those have been around in the 70s. I think they've been around in the 50s too, but I don't have proof on that. Yeah. As standard questions that you would always get, so you have a prepared answer waiting. You know what I mean?
Tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's probably going to be a slow change. I don't imagine it being a very drastic change just because people are you learn from your poll about 60% of your viewers, and you have a
Yeah.
lot of them, are not even using AI, don't even know what tools are out there for them to use. And so if we've already got like 60% of the population, just to kind of generalize, not even using the tools, it's going to take a while for them to start using it, which then will then kind of create this domino effect for employers and organizations to start to change. So I imagine it will be years before the interview process is revolutionized and changed. But this is the start. And it's kind of exciting to be present while this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the people that are in executive jobs now, upper middle management jobs, they will never use this. It won't impact them at all. They will continue the rest of their career without using these, and they will see no impact to them. It's for entry level, it's for professional jobs that this is sort of coming in and changing things a bit. You
Well,
know,
and I bet as the current executives and kind of C-suite individuals start to turn over, then you have the people who are more at that like middle management, even entry level role, who are starting to fill those executive level roles. And it's going to take, that generational overturn, is that
yeah.
even a word, to really get it to a point where it starts to impact that higher level of people as well. And then like, what does it even look like? So,
Well, I would like to leave everyone with a question. This is the kind of thing that is very pretentious and makes me seem a lot smarter than I am. But I would say that I would put to you that, okay, if you ever get to a point where you're interviewing someone for an executive job, and whether they get that position or not was influenced in a non-trivial way by whether they used AI to either prepare or to help them get the role in some way, I would argue that their process of vetting the person for that role is flawed.
mhm.
Like, why should one person get it when another person over another simply because they used AI for that type of role, which is based on decision making? I like to. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe the answer is that it does prepare people and it should influence it.
Yeah.
But I would also argue that, like, well, if it's that easy to fool the system and get you in there over someone who doesn't use AI as a tool, maybe they're not assessing you in the proper way.
Well, and I
That's
think that's where our conversation earlier about how AI is going to change the overall interview process to begin with, because I imagine that getting a role in that like executive level stage through AI today, as AI is primarily being used, isn't going to move the dial much. But when the entire interview process and the systems that we have in place to interview are, completely reversed and flipped over, then I think that's where it's really going to impact, because we're going to suddenly, go back to, different types of interviews where it's going to be come in and show us how you do the work. We're going to give you a project that you do in front of us in person to show us your decision making and your strategic thinking and all of these things, which they probably are doing a little bit of that now, if not a lot of that. But it's going to be, more heavily weighed on show us that you can do the job more than just tell us that you can do the job. Because if you just tell us, it could be a computer generating a response for us.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how some of this stuff plays out. Definitely. Um, Listen, is there any more to cover on this?
I don't think so.
I think we covered it all. Yeah, that's good for
Yeah.
today. But no, interesting stuff. I'm really excited to see where this stuff goes. I see right at the end here, we do have one question from somebody. Mal says, do you have a specific advice for people with less than 3 years of experience, but bit eligible for early career, like just graduated college types of jobs? Um, does anything leap to mind there, Abby, for this?
Yeah. So I would say that if you have less than 3 years of experience and you're looking for jobs that are kind of early career, fresh, out of high school or college or university, whatever that might look like, then it's probably considered an entry level job and you likely have the qualifications for it. I would say that you would want to use the things that we've already talked about today. Make sure that you create a tailored resume for the job you're applying to. You don't want just a general resume. You may be focusing a little bit more on the things that you did in your education. So, like group projects, courses, things like that, because that might be the experience that you have. Maybe you had an internship or some sort of like work study that you did in school that would be applicable. And then use programs like ChatGPT to analyze the experience that you do have, professional and educational, and connect the dots to the more entry-level jobs that you're applying to. And then use ChatGPT or generative AI programs to help you prepare for the interview. Have it, analyze the competencies for the role so you can start to prepare some real world stories to answer those interview questions. Have it generate interview questions for you. And then I just learned this yesterday because I asked ChatGPT the question. You might even record yourself and then upload that recording to ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it for you. So I have asked if ChatGPT would be able to create a transcript of one of my videos. And if I upload it directly to ChatGPT, it will transcribe it for me. And so that might be something that you can do. You can use those types of tools to analyze your response to general questions, to give you ideas on things that you might be able to change about your responses, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that I have videos on my channel that talk about stuff like this, like how to get a job with no experience and all this kind of stuff. I suspect that Abby, you have a lot of resources also on your channel. And if any of you guys are looking for a career coach type person, someone that's going to work with you one-on-one, I don't provide that service myself, but I believe, Abby, you do on your channel. So check out Abby's channel. And if you're looking for someone to do that with you and work with you, check out her stuff first. And I recommend everyone to just check out Abby's channel. If you're watching this on my channel, she's got some great videos about some of the things that I talk about, but you've got a different perspective on it. And I think it's a great perspective because you come from the person that's directly on the other side of the table. You know a lot of the hacks and how they think and that kind of stuff. So you share a lot of that in your videos. So I recommend everyone goes and checks out her stuff. The channel is Life Work Balance. So there's a link to it in the description box directly under this live stream. Go check it out.
Thank you.
And we are back in 1 week, correct? I believe we have another one of these scheduled. So yes. So we will be back next week. So if you have questions for myself or Abby and you want us to answer stuff together at the same time, come back next week.
I believe our topic is on transferable skills. So that's like the skills if you're changing careers or changing industries and how you can use those to really be successful in the next steps for whatever that might be for you. And I think maybe we'll put a pin in that question. Like you said, Bill, you have a couple of videos on the topic of applying to jobs when you have no experience. I do as well. That might be an interesting topic for us to focus on during one of our next live streams as well.
Definitely. Sounds good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And thanks to Abby. Thank you for joining me today.
Having me?
And best of luck to everyone. I wish everyone absolute best of luck. We will see you in a week. Take care.
Yeah. See you soon.